Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
Leslie Curtis. It's funny, people say, I've seen you before, and that's probably because they see you in the magazine.
That's right.
I'm sure people say, I've seen you. What are you, an actress?
Or I know you. Yeah.
I know you. And you say, yeah, who are you?
Yeah, it is amazing.
It is. People do become, thought of. And I know a lot of people from magazines and from newspapers because I see their picture. And I pretty much know that's where I saw them. But you do become kind of a celebrity in a sense because when you think of all the millions of people that don't get to be seen anywhere.
Right. Well, and I do get people that listen to the show.
Oh, yes.
So, they'll come up to me and say, I listened to you on Saturday. It's like,
I know that. I mean, it is amazing to me how the emails, as a matter of fact, I just got an email from someone who listened to this woman the last time, not the lady, the older, the survivor.
Right.
And it was like an email this long and she repeated the things. I loved it. It was the most wonderful, so I mean, I know it happens all the time. And I get people who I haven't spoken to for a long time. I think I heard you on the radio the other day.
Yeah.
And of course, Dr. Mencia, he's on every week. And he is just it's pretty important to him. So we're going to start probably doing something that I'd like to talk to you about because you are so good at what you do over there. The one thing that we know about you, Leslie, is we know a lot of things about you, but the one thing that's really important, Leslie, is that you are a fountain of information. And I know you just brought something into me, but you are so well known that if someone needs some help in the elder community, they're going to come to you, whether they're going to stay at Regents Park or not.
Oh, we get a lot of calls for help. I work very closely with the social service department as well because they get resources. I get resources. So we work together closely. There are a lot of people that, would not be appropriate for my facility. Maybe they need assisted living. Maybe they need some of the resources in the community that would help them. So you do the best you can with those people because they need the help. They don't know where to go.
No, they really don't. Nobody. You see, you're more prepared and I'm more prepared than most people. But even saying that, and your article that really is talking about long-term care and are you prepared? Well, a lot of us have long-term health care insurance. I do.
Right.
But I think it's a bigger question than that, isn't it? It's not just if you have the insurance.
No, I mean, that's an important part of it because if you don't have the insurance and you have, a low income, it makes things a little bit more difficult, well, quite a bit more difficult. But it's knowing either for your parents, possibly a sibling, or yourself, when you need to start thinking about needing either the resources or long-term care, whether that's in an assisted living facility or a skilled nursing facility. It's knowing those telltale signs. Usually it's going to be a child looking for their parents. But I think we all need to be aware of when we can no longer function independently and we start to require assistance of any kind, there's a decline. And if we can't get ourselves back to where we were, then it's time to start thinking about the next step, whether that's being able to stay in your home with X amount of help a day, or going to assisted living, or going into a skilled nursing facility. It's looking for those signs. Even, not that hopefully this is not a sign for me, but, you forget things. You're on your way somewhere and you go, where am I going?
Especially
I don't mean in the street,
if you're
but
in the phone
yeah.
And you pass, two places, two major intersections that you were supposed to turn at, right?
Right. Or you just going from
right.
my office to the admissions department and think, why am I coming here?
Exactly. That's only because we have so much on our mind, and that's what has happened to us. It's different when someone puts their keys in the refrigerator.
Right.
We know the differences, but I'm along the line of what you're saying. Yes, you're young, thinking about people in their 90s. But think if something were to happen to you, and I think about it all the time with me, because my husband's very independent, but he really couldn't be there by himself without me because he doesn't see that well, and he needs help with this, and can you find this? And he's great with his medication, but if he had to, I guess he could live alone, but it would be dangerous. So I've already thought about that and what would happen if something happened to me.
Right.
And, in the middle of the night, I put my hand over to make sure he's still breathing because that's the way it is. So I have a few people that, like, if I had to go to the hospital or something happened, let's say I don't die, but I just have to go. I have to have somebody that comes there, walks the dog, does things.
Right.
And that's what you're saying in a way, that people now who are elder and they're driving their car to get places, they really either shouldn't be, or they better find someone else, or what if they can't?
Right. And I can't even begin to tell you, especially those, and you really can't, quote, plan for this, but, any kind of a catastrophic incident that occurs in someone's life, an acute stroke, any kind of major trauma where maybe they're 85, and driving and totally independent. Well, that's not going to happen again. So if you've never put any thought into that whole scenario, you take a crisis situation and exacerbate it because, for the families or their loved ones, all of a sudden it's like, well, what am I going to do? Have never thought about it, So it's important to put some thought into these things before you have to.
It's funny when you said something, and I always say the same thing. It's the adult children who ask the questions, are the ones that come visit. So why isn't it the older adults who don't come and say, I want to see what's going on at this place on their own. I want to see what would happen to me if I needed this. Why? Are they just so afraid and it just looks them right in the eye and they don't want to face it?
I think that's a large part of it. And they're still living with the impression that a, quote, nursing home is somewhere you never want to go. So I think, and even, when they're in the hospital, and I'm not going to a nursing home, well, it's a rehab center. You have to flip it around for those short-term rehab patients. But I think that's a large part of it. If and they don't even have a clue what a long-term care facility is like. There's a lot of activities. There's a lot of things for them to do. So if they come in for short-term rehab and then have to convert to long-term care, it's easier for them than all of a sudden, the children are saying, we need to put you can't stay home anymore. Or I can't take care of you anymore. We need to find a place for you to go. And it's amazing, even from the adult children, how many times we'll get calls, I need placement for my parent. Now,
right?
And they've
like when?
been...
Next week? No.
Now. And they've been living at home or with the child for years. And all of a sudden they hit that breaking point and they're looking for now. Well, it doesn't work that way. It really doesn't. I mean, not if you want to get into a good place. They should have been looking 6 months or 9 months prior when they could see that decline was happening,
Okay, so for the now people, tell me what would happen. Tell me what, they call you and they've heard you on the radio and they've seen your articles. Leslie, I know you know what I need to get, pardon the expression, rid of my father now. Now, what do you do?
Well, first of all, at this moment in time, I would tell them I've got about 50 people on the waiting list. But barring that, we would set up to have our nurse evaluator go out and evaluate the patient, get all the information, and pending bed availability, move them in. If they need to apply for Medicaid, if they need to see an elder law attorney, those are all things that we need to let them know. Some of it's cut and dry. They already have community Medicaid, so it's easier for those kinds of patients. But it's a process. It does not happen overnight. It really it doesn't.
Okay, so you have a waiting list of 50. Do you have places you would refer them?
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll tell them if you're not happy, we can call you if a bed opens up, but, I can't make a bed. So it's good for the facility that we're full, but you have no idea how many people.
The problem with your facility, too, is what you were saying. People are being cared for so well, they're not leaving quickly. They're not dying, and they're not leaving quickly. So I would say that it probably stays. Once it's that full, I wouldn't get on the waiting list. I would go find another place.
Well, that's just it. I mean, again, I think we've discussed it before, but if somebody's in their home with a 24-hour caregiver versus being in the facility with 24-hour nursing, there's a big difference in what you're going to catch. And potentially they don't need to go to the hospital. We can take care of them at the facility. So versus the 911 call, because all of a sudden, the patient is gotten really confused and lethargic and, all those things that happen. So not that it doesn't happen with us as well, but not near to the extent that it does to the other kind of situations.
So preparation, and I think you've brought in this wonderful brochure about community resources. Now, these are great resources, but most of these are not living resources, are they?
No.
And so they're going to get the same information if they call you.
Right.
In a sense, or they won't get the same because you really are the place they want to go.
Right. I mean, and some of them can afford to keep their loved one in the home for a little while and hope that a bed opens up. But we also will always give them references to other facilities that I would know have availability. There's no point in me sending them to somebody else that has long-term beds, but they're full. So,
is this becoming more common now?
I don't know. I mean, I know many facilities that have long-term care beds available.
But they're not the quality that you have. If they want Regents Park, that's extraordinary. That's superb. And there are only a few of places like you, and they're not all in Boca Raton. It also depends on the location.
Right. And like I said, it's people are amazed that we take Medicaid. They really are. It's like, well, what happens if my money runs out? Well, then you'll apply for Medicaid. You take Medicaid? It's like, yeah.
Well, that's true. I was surprised before I heard that too. That's like, really?
I know.
But they've already been there. And years ago, if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me, there were places when you ran out of money, you were sent out. You were gone. They did, I don't use the word kick you out, but you couldn't stay. I'm talking about 15, 20 years ago.
Well, again, if they don't have Medicaid beds, you can't stay.
Yeah, right. That's what I meant. Medicaid beds, right. A lot of them didn't have Medicaid beds years ago. So it was like, they don't have money? You better go find another place. Can you imagine that?
That would be horrible.
It would be.
So even our short-term rehab patients, if there's a potential for long-term care, we let them know right up front, we don't have any long-term care beds. That's just a fact. If he or she needs long-term care, you're going to have to move them. Because I don't have a long-term care bed. So, a lot of those patients will, before they even come in, will refer to somebody else that I know has beds.
So you don't have a peachy job.
No.
That's not, you have a lot of heartbreak and a lot of things that upset you. I'm sure you take home and you just say, I can't believe I had to do that, or they're not this or that,
I know.
Right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, you hate to deny anybody care, but, you have to be honest with people and tell them that I can't guarantee you that there will be a bed in 60 days.
So let me ask you, your beds, do you have more than two in a room?
No.
You have two. You have semi-privates.
We have semi-privates.
And you have private.
Right.
And would it be better to not have private? Do some people have to have private?
Some people will need private only if they're on isolation. But
what does that mean?
That means they've got some organism that they need to be isolated. Kept
otherwise you don't just have it because they're a fancy group.
No. We've got patients that are there on Medicaid where the children will pay the extra cost for the private room.
Really?
Yeah.
I have a hard time with that one, but that's okay.
No, trust me.
Oh, that's okay. So, okay, but let's just think about it. Don't you think it's better for the person to have a partner in a room than being all by themselves?
Usually, yes. If they have, a dementia or, the term sundowner.
Yes.
And their temperament changes.
Yes,
then
I
the
do
roommate
understand.
Suffers.
Yeah, no, I do understand.
So you try to put like people together.
I see.
And it might work all day long, and then nighttime comes and, or one of them is really hard of hearing and the other one can't stand the TV. So, you really try to put people together that will like each other.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But I have always felt a lot of the fancy independent communities and assisted living, people have these apartments they go into all by themselves at night. They get up there 7, 8 o'clock, and they're there till 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, and they're all alone. Yeah. And I always thought, and some of them, there are people who can't afford them. If they could do it as a double and have somebody else there with them, I would think it would work out better. Even though you're right, sometimes it's, you have to make allowances for things, but it's when you're all alone and you're an elder person, I don't care if you go in as independent or assisted, you still need to have a companion, I think.
Yeah, I think socialization is important. For the most part, we're social beings. Sometimes, like I say, as they get older, that changes. The long-term residents are amazing. You'll have one that hasn't talked in a month and will all of a sudden start talking to you. It's like, where's that coming from? So you don't know, No,
that's funny. Is that really true?
No, it's really true.
They could talk, they just choose not to.
I'm not sure. I don't know if something clicks on and off in their brain, but one of my coworkers, this little lady, said to her, "Why do you limp?" I used to limp too because I had bad knees, and she carried on. And I don't know that she's talked to her again since then, but it's...
You really?
Yeah. Well, they'll bring in people that sing, and they'll sing to some of these patients that are pretty, demented or Alzheimer's, and that's one place you can get them. They'll start to sing.
Yeah.
So it's, you don't know what happens up there. I don't know what happens up there for myself either sometimes, but, it truly is amazing.
But you're patient, you're understanding, and you have a sense of humor.
Right.
And your staff does. And I know that you are not in charge of human resources, but...
Oh, thank God. No.
because you do have... There's a certain person that you have to bring into a retirement situation. You just have to.
It's true. And I think most of us kind of look at it that if a resident or a patient yells at us, you just blow it off, especially if they don't really even understand why they're yelling at you, versus somebody, in Publix that you want to respond to inappropriately at times.
Right.
But
take a bag of spaghetti and knock them on the head.
Yeah.
No, I understand. But that is the big thing is the people who do work there basically have a very loving attitude. They understand if someone's diseased because you do have a lot of residents who are very nice and very friendly, and that's their disposition. That's the way they are.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah,
a lot of the long-termers.
I know that because I've been to some of your parties, and they are always invited. And they're so sweet, and they're so nice, and they're so happy to be there. And so it must be working for you.
I think, for the most part, it does. There's one of the long-term units, the head nurse, is in there in the skilled dining room every day at lunchtime feeding residents.
Really?
Yeah. So I know if I can't find her,
isn't
that's where
sweet?
She's going to be.
Isn't that
She
sweet?
takes a late lunch herself so she can do that.
That is so important because even in hospitals, I have noted that when I've been there on a few occasions helping my husband after he's had some surgeries, and sometimes the person in the other bed is elder, and they bring the food in, and then they take the food out, and nobody comes to feed them. And I've wound up feeding them myself because it's just so unheard of.
Right.
But you do watch that because it's like your family.
It is. It is. If one of them really gets sick and ends up in the hospital, it's like, oh, why'd you go up? Go check on them.
Of course.
Because we do care about them. I mean, it is. It becomes like your second home. I hate to say that, but it does.
No, I understand that. And so, well, in your article and about are you considering, are you prepared for long-term care, I think it was good for the older adult himself and then for people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, too.
I agree.
That was a good
hopefully,
article.
They will read it and think about it because you don't want to wait until...
But you said now. I
right.
need something now, right?
Which means that daughter or son is in crisis.
Yeah.
Can't cope anymore. And you just can't accomplish this over. It's not like renting a hotel room. It's a lot more involved.
So you also, though, have a lot of families that aren't here. And that's another very difficult thing for people in the long-term care business.
It really is. And again, when they come in for short-term rehab and they're confused, and you say to the children, she's not okay. She's confused. Well, she was fine before she went in the hospital. No, I guarantee you, I can look at the diagnoses there and say, I doubt it. And then when they finally hit town and they look in the apartment or the condo and they see, it's like, no, she hasn't been okay for a long time. She can sound fine over the phone for 15 minutes. I mean, we all can. You could be having the worst day in the world and somebody calls you and you make nice.
How are you? I'm fine.
Yeah, everything's great. But that's not the reality. So a lot of times they just don't see the decline or possibly denial. This is my father. He can't be like this. Well, yeah.
So your advice is for people listening now, if you have family members, sometimes these shows do go all over. If you're in New York, you're hearing this. Don't wait once a year to come visit your family members. Being on the phone every week is not enough. You need to go. If you could come down at least, every 3 months, it'd be better every month. Just check on what's going on.
Right.
And it's not the refrigerator so much because I have a very hard time keeping my vegetable bin clean. And I could see someone coming in and say, oh, she doesn't know what she's doing. Everything's rotting in there. I mean, there's
right.
certain things.
Yeah, you forgot.
Yeah, I forgot.
Now it's green.
Right.
Yeah.
I was too busy to take out that lettuce that looked like it died.
It's the burnt pots and pans.
Ah, burnt pots and pans.
Because they're leaving them on the stove.
Yeah.
It's I don't even say the little things.
Yeah.
An empty refrigerator.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things that you can see if you're in the condo or the home.
Well, since we're on this, from your head, you're so smart. What are some of the other things to look for? Okay, we already look for now an empty refrigerator. And what else should we be looking for?
I'd be looking at how well kept they are. Stained clothes. Because either their eyesight is so bad they can't see it, or they're wearing the same thing over and over.
So look at their bed linens.
Yeah. I would, certainly look in the bathroom. I mean, there's anywhere you look in an apartment where somebody's not really functioning well, you'll know it when you see it. AC is off and it's 95 degrees outside, or the heat is on instead of the AC.
That's a common problem. I know
it
that.
is.
It is because they can't see enough to see
right.
Because they spend a lot of time calling the engineers.
If they're, I've always been cleanly people, and things are not that way. First of all, it could be eyesight, and it's just a sign that they're declining. And you have to also be aware that sometimes you've got that depression mixed in with that. So, they need to be seeing professionals to help ascertain what's what. Certainly if you're declining, you're not functioning as well as you always have, you're probably aware of it. You're not going out. Maybe you can't drive anymore. So the depression sets in. So it's kind of like how much of it is, a decline because of depression versus, some dementia or Alzheimer's. So that's why, they need to be seeing doctors that can look at those things.
I was just thinking about what you were saying. So let's say that some people are on medication, and many of them are minimum of 5 medications.
Mm-hmm.
How are we sure that they are taking them on time properly?
There are a lot of different gadgets out there. Now, I'm not going to tell you that they all work, but that they're loaded by a pharmacy into the correct, morning, afternoon, evening, bedtime. There are different programs. I'll use AT&T as an example, but there's so many of them now that they will call to remind the resident or patient that it's time to take a pill, or the box will ding, ding, ding. And if it's not answered, then they will call who's on the list to be called. So there's a lot of gadgets out there.
Because that is a problem.
It is a problem.
Because I think it's a problem even at places like Regents Park, that if someone comes in, you have a list of when you have to give them the medication.
Right.
Because medication is very serious.
And a lot of it's got to be timed.
Right.
I'm supposed to take one at bedtime. Now, I have to tell you, I've fallen asleep before I take that pill, and I wake up at 3 o'clock.
Right, of course. I mean, we all, taking medication on, especially they say every 12 hours. Well, 12 hours doesn't work out. It's at 3 o'clock in the morning. What are you supposed to do?
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. Medication is very serious, and I think there's some people that go to nursing homes just because of the medication problem.
Oh, I would agree, because if they don't take it the way they're supposed to, they're in the emergency room with congestive heart failure. They're in the emergency room with all these different things. And come to find out, well, they haven't taken it for a week because...
For whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter when.
Yeah, exactly. So it's funny, when I take Bill, he has macular degeneration in one of his eyes, and they always ask him, when did you take your last drops? When did you do this? Now, he does all this himself, and he knows exactly when. It must be very important. So he doesn't have anything else that happens. Leslie, we did it again.
Yes, we did.
I love having you come here because you can imagine people listening to what you tell them. That's important. Even if one of the major things you said, maybe some people will now start thinking about what would happen if they need long-term care, right?
That's right.
Clean out your closets.
That's right.
Thanks, Leslie.
Thank you.
Oh, wait. Don't, no, I didn't do it. Let me give you their phone number, 561-483-9282. 561-483-9282. That's Regents Park, Boca Raton.